Death has been a part of tattoo imagery for well over a century. Skulls and hourglasses have been central to Flash since the early 1900s. Full Reapers began appearing by the mid-20th century, and they still show up on Flash walls today. These designs were more than fear made visible. They were tools people used to talk about risk, survival, and defiance. People who lived on the edge recognized those images. Sailors, soldiers, gamblers, and outlaws, who understood time and danger in a different way. So they adopted symbols that spoke to living with that risk. Tattoo Flash borrowed that language and made it permanent on the skin. This video is a look at how those death motifs moved from art into Flash, how they changed once they hit the shop wall, and why they still matter today. Welcome to Skin and Story. Long before Tattoo Flash existed, European art treated mortality as a subject people returned to again and again. Plague art, funerary engravings, and devotional prints showed skulls, skeletons, hourglasses, and other reminders of mortality. The phrase Memento Mori, remember you must die, became a cultural practice, not just a slogan. It was a way for people to orient their lives around the time that was known to be limited. Those visual ideas traveled. Sailors carried small prints and talismans, and entertainers and traders spread imagery from port to port. Life at sea involved constant risk, so symbols that talked about time and danger tended to resonate with maritime communities. When tattooing moved from decks and fairs onto parlor walls in the early 20th century, tattooers used the same visual vocabulary. Skulls, bones, and hourglasses became standard Flash because the images already had meaning for the people choosing them. They were not decorative afterthoughts. They were culturally loaded signs about how people lived with the knowledge of possible early endings. I wear one of these reminders. This skull with the phrase Memento Mori is not a morbid showpiece. It is a prompt, a way to keep time and priorities in view. The original story of death motifs in tattooing is simple. Art gave us the symbols, maritime and iterate cultures carried them, and early Flash picked them up because they already mattered. By the 1920s, American tattooing had moved into a more organized business. Catalogs from Percy Waters show how standardized Flash was becoming. Waters sold sheets to tattooers across the country, and among his staples were skulls, banners with phrases like death before dishonor, and hourglasses. These designs appeared regularly on Flash walls, part of the core vocabulary of early tattooing. Skulls and hourglasses also reflected the lives of the people getting tattooed. Sailors faced drowning, disease, and violence. Soldiers knew combat and injury. A skull with an hourglass was not abstract art to them. It was a mark of recognition, an honest statement about how short life could be. I wear one of these reminders. This skull trapped inside an hourglass is an image you can find on early Flash, but also one that still makes sense today. You can't flip the glass back over. The sand runs one way. This tattoo makes sure I never forget that. By the 1930s, other artists expanded on these darker themes, giving us sheets where skulls, skeletons, and reapers sat next to panthers, daggers, and hearts. Death was not an occasional subject. It was woven into the everyday language of tattooing, almost from the very beginning. By the 1930s and 40s, Reaper figures began appearing on tattoo Flash sheets, influenced by European art and folklore. Some sheets were anonymous, others circulated through carnivals, but the imagery was there. Cloaked skeletons with scythes, sometimes paired with banners or surrounded by roses. Reapers appeared alongside classic designs like daggers, hearts, and panthers in the mix of Flash sheets from the period. For some sailors and soldiers, Reaper tattoos reflected honesty about the risks they faced. To wear death on the skin was to say, I know it's waiting, but it doesn't control me. For outlaws, gamblers, mercenaries, and other people living life on the edge, the Reaper carried a different weight. It was a reminder that living dangerously came with a cost, but it also came with a mark of pride. To have the Reaper tattooed could mean you have lived close to him, maybe cheated him, maybe carried his shadow with you. One of my Reaper tattoos pairs death with a woman's face and a flower. That theme, beauty and death side by side, runs deep in traditional Flash. It reminds us that life and joy are always paired with endings. Every rose comes with its thorn, every pretty face with its shadow. Not every Reaper on a Flash sheet was meant to be grim. Carnival tattooers and anonymous sheets from the early 20th century show Reapers drawn smoking cigars, rolling dice, holding playing cards, or even chasing women. These images balance the seriousness of mortality with the humor that kept people going. Humor has always been a part of tattoo culture. Sailors, soldiers, and carnival crowds lived in dangerous conditions, but they also lived in close quarters and they valued comic relief. Turning the Reaper into a gambler or a trickster didn't erase death's meaning. It made the image approachable, something you could laugh at while still respecting its weight. My Reaper tattoos follows that line of humor. In this design, the Reaper is pulling off its own mask, and underneath the hood is a cat. The joke is sharp because cats are hunters. Domestic cats have been documented killing billions of small animals every year, making them one of the most effective predators alive. This tattoo takes the classic image of the Reaper and twists it. Death does not always come with a scythe. Sometimes it wears fur and curls up on your couch. Oddities like these show how Reaper Flash stayed flexible and appealing to different crowds. By mixing fear with humor, tattooers made sure death stayed on the wall as something both serious and familiar. The Grim Reaper remained a recurring motif in Tattoo Flash, but the way artists painted him shifted with each generation. By the mid-20th century, Reapers stayed close to their early roots, cloaked figures with scythes, often surrounded by roses or paired with banners. By the 1970s and 1980s, Reapers were being reimagined by biker culture and custom artists, stretched across backs or riding motorcycles. In the traditional revival that began in the late 20th century and continues today, tattooers still draw Reapers in bold outlines and simple color palettes, but they also push the image into mashups. Panther Reapers, Animal Reapers, and surreal Reaper figures show up on flash walls and on Instagram feeds alike. The core design is unchanged. A skeleton in a hood, carrying time's burden, but the details are endlessly flexible. Popular culture has kept the image alive also. From films like Meet Joe Black to comic books and Halloween iconography, the Reaper is a global shorthand for mortality. Tattooing has always pulled from those larger visual worlds, so the figure keeps reappearing, updated but recognizable. The reason Reapers remain strong in tattooing is simple. Mortality never goes out of style. Each generation finds its own way to face it, to defy it or to laugh at it. And the Reaper image bends to fit. From Plague Art to Percy Waters catalogs, from anonymous flash sheets to Carnival designs, the Reaper has always been present for decades, shifting shape but keeping meaning. He is a reminder of time, a companion to risk, a shadow on beauty, and sometimes a joke that lets us laugh at what we fear the most. The tattoos I carry are small pieces of that larger story, proof that these designs still live on skin the same way they once lived on paper. And they remind me of why these motifs mattered to sailors, soldiers, and outlaws, and why they still matter to collectors today. Reaper tattoos are not just about endings. They're about how we face them and how we choose to live before they arrive. The legacy of traditional tattooing lives in our skin and in our story. Thank you for being here. We are